35 Israeli F-35 fighters suddenly crashed into a dam. They weren't shot down. There was no bad weather. They were hacked by Iran. This isn't a movie plot. It's an absurd event that made billion-dollar technology look like a broken toy. How could such a powerful nation fall victim to a digital prank? And why did the people end up suffering in the end? You have to stay until the end, because this is more than just a plane crash. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our channel, where we'll share inspiring and educational stories. But before we start, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. And don't forget to write a blessing in the comments to receive intercession in the afterlife. Let's get started, brothers. So, that morning, the sky over Tel Aviv was clear. Pigeons were flying as usual, the air was clean, and everyone seemed busy with their own affairs. But in the distance, a roaring sound began to emerge. Unfortunately, it wasn't the sound of a falafel vendor, but a formation of F-35 fighters belonging to Israel, conducting routine military exercises. Though in reality, there was nothing routine about showcasing power with such expensive planes. It was like a sultan's son driving a Lamborghini through the neighborhood to buy iced tea. 35 planes, guys. 35 is no small number. If all those planes were combined, they could put on a grand mobile fair. But since they're military, they must have had their reasons and goals. Or at least, they pretended to. So, they say they were testing the automatic maneuvering system. These planes are equipped with cutting-edge technology. They're advanced. They say they can think like real pilots. But we all know you can't always rely on technology, especially when you're up against a country that likes to play dirty, namely Iran. The trouble started when the planes gained altitude and formed up. The control tower operators began to get confused. Their communication system picked up a strange sound. It wasn't a pilot's voice or weather interference, but some random binary code, like the sound of an old modem when we connected to the internet in the 2000s. The operators started to panic, but as usual, tried to stay calm out of pride. One of them said, "Oh, maybe it's the weather or interference from a civilian radar," though he was already sweating internally. Seconds later, one plane began to descend slowly, not landing but as if losing control, gently dropping, spinning. Then 2 more planes followed, then 5 more, then 10. Within 5 minutes, all 35 planes were like kindergarten kids after playing on the swings. They all crashed. They didn't explode or plummet loudly like in movies, but landed in an absurd place, on a dam. One big dam near central Tel Aviv. Can you imagine? Fighters worth hundreds of millions of dollars parked like pedal boats on an artificial lake. People who were jogging stopped immediately. Some went live on TikTok, others recorded videos, though it was still August. That's when it all went public. When military specialists started analyzing the system, they found a strange log. There were traces of an external device breaching the F-35 system. But that's not all. The intruder came through Israel's own internal satellite network. It's like a house being robbed not because thieves came from outside, but because the back door was left unlocked, and all the traces pointed to one coordinate abroad. Guess who? Iran? Yes, Iran. The country that's constantly bickering with Israel. Like an ex-partner who can't move on but secretly checks your Instagram every night. And it turned out they'd been trying to infiltrate Israel's air defense system for a long time. But they didn't strike right away. They stayed silent, watched patiently, like internet users gathering evidence before exposing someone. But what's even scarier, this interception wasn't the work of 1 or 2 hackers. It was a state-level operation. The F-35's electronic system, which is supposedly resistant to interference and hacking, could be controlled like a radio-controlled toy. Planes of that class fell silently into the dam, as if someone had entered a GTA cheat code to make jets fly into water. Sometimes this world is strange. We're so busy creating technology to attack that we forget technology can also be turned against us. Israel was proud of its 35 planes, like a parent proud of a child who just graduated with honors, and then suddenly they were humiliated like a kid playing with a paper airplane. The question now is whether this will be a wake-up call for the whole world, or just a news story that gets chewed up, swallowed, and forgotten. After the 35 Israeli F-35s fell into the dam like fish spilling from a bucket, the world was shaken. International media went wild, but the Israeli government, as usual, said, "We're still investigating. It's not necessarily an attack. God, it's like the house is burning, and the owner says, maybe it's just a short circuit. No big deal. Worse yet, one senior military official said, maybe it's part of the automatic safe landing system. Your father's safe landing on a dam. Aren't there ground radars? Can't they tell an airfield from a fishing pond? But that's how it is, guys. National pride is worth more than the cost of a fighter jet. Better to blame the system than admit you were outsmarted by a country long considered an enemy. Iran was amusing. They didn't say, yes, we did it, but they also didn't say, it wasn't us. A spokesperson just made a statement. Some advanced technologies in the world aren't as secure as they think. That's it. It's like your ex saying, I'm not saying you're bad, just that there are plenty of better people. Though Western media often call Iran outdated or backward, they've been playing the cyber war game for a long time. Even when their nuclear lab was sabotaged by malware, they learned from it, like someone who got pranked and then learned to prank back, but in a harsher way. And now this is the result. Enemy planes can be controlled from 1,000 kilometers away, like a PSP game. But you're not controlling a video game character. You're controlling a military plane worth billions of dollars. Imagine, brother, while you're struggling to use a sticky mouse in an internet cafe, they can control an F-35 from their laptop. Cool, right? Creepy, but cool. The funniest thing is that after this incident, the dam where the planes got stuck became super popular. Locals came with cameras, kids took selfies in front of an F-35 wing, someone sold popcorn, someone offered photography services for 20 shekels a shot. I swear that dam became an impromptu tourist attraction. One woman said, when else are you going to see a fighter jet this close, sir? Usually I only see them on TV. Meanwhile, the government quickly put up police tape and tall fences, but internet users had already spread the videos. Some were in slow motion, others edited with the Titanic song as the planes sank into the water. This is truly a moment that shows one thing. Nowadays, even a military failure can become viral content. And that's a bit sad because when a tragedy turns into a joke, it means public trust has been undermined. Sometimes we forget that strength isn't in who has the most expensive weapons, but in who is more patient and cunning in finding loopholes. And sometimes that loophole is a small, easily overlooked digital crack, but once it's breached, it can ruin everything. The F-35 is a symbol of military luxury, but it fell not because of a missile, not because of a shot, but because of a code, a mind, intelligence. And that's scarier. So, the story goes that a few days after the mass F-35 parking incident, the Israeli investigation team panicked. It wasn't just because of the hack of the plane's control system, but also because of the leak of flight data, internal communication channels, and even the pilot's playlists. Don't believe it? One pilot reportedly heard an Iranian remix of a dangdut-style song during the flight, though he was sure he was listening to an Israeli EDM 2025 Spotify playlist. That's sabotage, brother. Not just a glitch. During the investigation, the technical team found a strange pattern in the F-35's coding system. There were odd lines that infiltrated without permission under the name Fars Route, a pun on Iran's Fars News. And the funniest thing is that the hacking traces came from an outsourced software component. That is, it was made abroad, shipped in boxes, and even had a label saying, Made in Southeast Asia. So they bought parts for planes worth hundreds of millions of dollars from small factories that sometimes still use fans and parchment paper to operate. Isn't that insane? And here's the bitter irony. They built a defense system to protect the country but left it in the hands of suppliers whose payroll system still used Excel 2007. All right, now let's talk about something deeper. You know the price of one F-35 is about $90 million. So 35 units, that's, well, do the math yourself, I'm too lazy. But it's obviously trillions of rupiah if converted. Now let's ask, why spend so much money on military equipment? In the end, the people still have problems with education, hospitals, and access to clean water. But don't worry. It's not just Israel, brother. Many countries do this too. They buy expensive weapons but still borrow from neighboring countries to pay for vaccines. And the funniest thing is, when the planes crashed, the people became the butt of jokes. There was a meme where one plane was used to sell ice cream. Someone also edited a pilot to look like an online taxi driver. And this isn't just funny stuff. It's actually a form of the people's extreme frustration. They can no longer protest officially. So, in the end, they joke because now jokes are the only way to survive. A week later, the F-35 crash went viral. People started creating content about this collective crash from all angles. Some made slow-motion videos, some even had edited sounds. An expensive plane crashes into a dam, people's hearts are still drowning in debt. And you know what's even more heartbreaking? Some officials were busier responding to memes than finding solutions. One military official even made an explanatory video. "We guarantee the planes landed safely. No casualties." That means the system still works, brother. Your plane falls into the water like a duck on a slide, and you can still say it works. Aren't you ashamed? It's like you cooked noodles, but they burned, the egg broke, and the broth spilled. And you say, the important thing is it's still warm. Amid all this drama and laughter, we sometimes forget that technology is just a tool. What makes it useful or dangerous is who controls it. And if the system can be remotely controlled, we need to ask who's really in power. Maybe those we thought were strong are just expensive puppets, controlled from afar, manipulated through invisible channels. And the people, as usual, just watch, eating fried food. Because the only weapon the people have now is quotas and content. A week passed, 2 weeks, and finally a month. The F-35s were finally recovered. But not to fly again, brother. They were dismantled, studied, and dismantled again. They say they'll evaluate the technology and global supply chains. That's a soft way of saying, we don't know who slipped us a Trojan horse. And in internal meetings, voices of fear began to emerge. If this system can be hacked now, who can guarantee our drones, missiles, or satellite systems won't be hacked too? But you know what the public's reaction was when they learned the investigation results? Nothing. There was no shock anymore because that's how it is. This world is getting crazier, and people have become numb. I often think, brother, in our era, war is no longer bullets and blood. Sometimes the most dangerous war is the silent, invisible one that seeps through cables, satellites, and yes, cardboard boxes with parts. These planes were expensive, complex, designed to dominate the skies, but all that can lose its function because of one small loophole. A loophole that might have been planted years ago, quietly waiting. And what's even more painful, doesn't this resemble life? You have a plan. You build your life system so well, but it can all collapse because of one fragile point you didn't notice. It could be because of a small decision, a person you trusted, or because you were too confident in your own technology and system. So, if someone asks, what lesson can we learn from 35 Israeli F-35s crashing into a dam because of an Iranian hack? I'll just say, sometimes what you think is strong is just a shell, and the one you consider a weak enemy has already been in your living room for a long time. Quietly, without noise, but confidently. And now, for us ordinary people who can't afford planes or missiles, at least we can learn one lesson. Don't be too proud of your system, especially if it's made up of just ego, pride, and pirated software.